anybody who knows anything about the international capital markets will know that global instability causes the markets to react.
Very sensitive.
Prime Minister Liz Truss in England understood that when they delivered a budget that so offended and upset the markets that it effectively led to the implosion of her government within a matter of weeks. President Trump understood that when the announcement of his tariffs led the markets to go crazy a few months ago, and he had to readjust scheduling of timelines and discussions and all kinds of things to placate the market. But it wasn't only that first day when we decided to go to issue the tender. Once we determined that we were actually going to execute the transaction, on Monday, June the 23rd, what happened on June 22nd? The United States bombed nuclear sites in Iran. And on Sunday, there was actually consideration as to whether we would proceed or not. But we were confident that the Barbados story, one that has seen debt moving, all this talk about debt. Debt has gone in Barbados to 102.4% as we speak, and is scheduled to be less than 3 figures, to be 2 figures by the end of the year. But let me compare it, because the honourable member gets on as if Barbados' debt is high and dangerous and things. It is high, but it is not as high as many countries. The United States of America, according to Trade and Economics at December 2024, the US's debt to GDP ratio, 124%. France, 113%. Canada, 111%. Spain, that is hosting the Financing for Development Conference next week, 108%. Singapore, the country that almost all of us admire, the one that Errol Barrow, Right Excellent Errol Barrow, spoke of so highly, and that all across the world we know Singapore to be a beacon like a city on a hill. Singapore, 173%. And we have worked to bring ours down, and are at 102.4%, and will go to somewhere between 98 and 99% by the end of the year. But the member for Christchurch South will continue to echo a refrain that Barbados is in dangerous waters, and Barbados is about to fall off the cliff, and that we what? The country is in resignation and in peril? What foolishness is this? Let me encapsulate it for you. A small island developing state called Barbados goes to the international capital markets for the first time in about 14 years. Goes with a credit rating lower than many. In the middle of a war that is escalating in the Middle East, that is threatening to bring us closer and closer to global instability at best, and to global warfare at worst. We go to the market with a natural disaster clause and a pandemic clause that the market has never used before. You understand what I just tell you? That bonds are issued by companies and countries every day. And the market globally is not accustomed to natural disaster clauses, and certainly not pandemic clauses. And not only do we go to the market, but we have 5.6 times what we are asking for, bidding for what we are offering. When we ask the others what is the definition of excellence, they said bids that are 3 times what you're asking for. and that what Barbados did was exceptional. But it is not this government, it is the country. And it is a sacrifice made by all Bajans over the last 7 years that have allowed us to be here. And I want to make that point. And I want to thank Barbadians, because without their participation and goodwill, and that is why we would not be here. And that is why we said from the beginning, 2 weeks after being elected, when the leader of the opposition was sitting on the back bench, and he was clapping and very happy to say so, share the burden, share the bounty. And this government has not only talked the talk, but it has walked the walk. And contrary to all that they have said, when we return the $300 to each person over 18 who wants to get it, then it was reduced to being some form of welfareism and some kind of negative act. Well, I am sure that his candidate in St. James North was happy for it, because having received a $300 contribution, when the deposit was lost in the treasury, she still had $50 in her hand. He asked about White Oak's fee, but I suppose that he could not face the truth and left before, because I promised him that I would address it. And he was, as usual, trying to cast innuendo and to indicate that we are paying out millions of dollars to White Oak or some exorbitant fee, and that we are frightened to tell the country what the situation is. Madam Deputy Speaker, what madness is this? I want to tell you in this Parliament, White Oak has had not a single dollar coming from this specific transaction that is before the Parliament of Barbados today. White Oak has been our advisors since 2018, and they provide general advice to the government of Barbados. And therefore, JP Morgan Securities has to be paid. Standard Chartered has to be paid out of this transaction, but not White Oak. But when the member is searching, if you cannot debate me on competence, if you cannot come toe-to-toe with me on competence, then where do you descend to be able to fight? Stop playing in matters that are way beyond your competence. You would have done better, he would have done better, Madam Deputy Speaker, to be able to say, I don't support it, I can't. But by the way in which he spoke, he left all to see that he could not appreciate what this debate is fundamentally about. I go back to make the point that on Friday, 84% of the people holding our 2029 Eurobonds agreed to be repaid, which will mean that $340 million of this 500 will go straight to be able to pay, repay, and prepay, I should say, those Eurobonds 2029. Of note, some of the people who are taking the prepayments have actually bid for the new bonds and are agreed to walk with us for the long haul again, rather than jump off ship. Because if you thought that Barbados was a bad risk, a poor risk, you would be jumping off the ship when you get prepaid, rather than trying to come back in and participate in the new bonds that we are offering. It is amazing. In addition, other countries have prepaid the IMF as we are doing. St. Kitts did it. Other countries have done it. And what it does is that it sends a signal to the markets and to the credit rating agencies. And why is that important? If we can, through our credit ratings, continue to reduce the cost of money to the government of Barbados, and by extension, to Barbadian companies, and by extension, to Barbadian individual households, as you heard the member for Christchurch East Central speak, we can reduce the interest rates for everybody who is borrowing from government to company to household. And that is what we are doing because the Democratic Labour Party government saw us have our cost of borrowing not only rise significantly, but their actions led to companies like Sagicor re-domiciling from Barbados because they could not get a higher credit rating than the sovereign credit rating of the country. And a company that was established in this country in the middle of the 19th century, built by Bajans initially, could not withstand the weight of the incompetence of the Democratic Labour Party administration led by the former Prime Minister. Madam Deputy Speaker, what am I really hearing? I said earlier today that Sir John Stanley Bruce Dare, otherwise known as Jack Dare, told me you argue a case once in court. And I simply say to the people of Barbados that the judgment has been passed not by the people who sit on this bench, not by the members of the Barbados Labour Party, but by all independent actors, many of whom, as the Bajans would say, don't rise at none of us, and therefore don't owe us anything. And when you have the independent players outside passing judgment, not just to speak, but to put their money where their mouth is, to express confidence, to give us almost 6 times in bids what we were looking for, and to drive down the price. And then on the day after the bonds are issued, today, to be trading above par, such that the effective yield is between 7.93 and 7.95% now, even below the 8%. I don't know what more we can do to advise, help the Democratic Labour Party, but I do know what we can do to protect the people of Barbados from the Democratic Labour Party. And that is to keep them far, far from the management of the financial and economic affairs of this nation. I ask this Honourable Chamber to remember, I know what it is to be a member of this Parliament when the order paper came down late with the Credit Suisse loan. And when, I think it started at 9%, at an even higher rate than these bonds are at a time of low interest rates. And I know what it is to have seen us not be able to get help from anywhere. And I say to this Honourable Chamber, this government may not be perfect, and it makes no assertion to be. If you know me, you know that is not my style. But what we have done is to come to work and work with Bajans from the labor movement, the private sector, households, and across the board to help restructure under the Barbados Economic Restructuring and Transformation Program 1 and 2, and to put us in a position where we have regained the confidence of the international and regional communities in the management of our fiscal and economic affairs. We have reduced unemployment to 6.3%. But as I have said recently, the fact that we are now at the lowest ever unemployment rate in the history of this country will not stop us from doing all that we can to address underemployment and to go even further below the 6.3%. We have been able to moderate inflation in the last year to 1.4%, a situation that will help us start from a good position if there is a further increase in prices globally as a result of the Middle East conflict. We have been able to see real economic growth. And in the Caribbean community last year, there were only 2 countries who had more than 4% growth. And Barbados was one of them. And I go further. The truth of the pudding is always in the proof of the pudding is always in the eating. This government remains committed to bringing our debt to GDP ratio down to 60% by 2035, 36, barring no major disasters globally. And what is significant is that we have been faithful in that. And who have we chosen in most instances to prepay and repay debt to first? The Bajans, to the pensioners, to the people who had to take bonds of one type or another. And while there's still some bonds there, we have prepaid debt every year in the last 2 years. And we are committed to putting more money in the hands of Bajans, which is why we have seen savings rise and domestic excess liquidity in this country rise. In simple terms, we have put more money in people's pockets. But listening to the Honourable Member for Christchurch South, you would not believe that there have been 3 salary increases in the last 7 years. You would not believe that the minimum wage has been set and gone up since then. And that while things may not be how things were at some point in the past, it is not because of the management of our economy. It is because the world in which we live now is facing polycrises. In other words, crisis after crisis after crisis after crisis. And I know, because as Prime Minister, every time I think we're ready to turn the corner and move fast, something happens globally. We did the debt restructuring. Within 2 months, bam, COVID came. We get out of COVID after 3 years, bam, the Russia-Ukraine war came, and immediately oil prices and supply chains disrupted. Food prices up, inflation up. We get into the point where we moderate inflation, we got unemployment right down, and bam, Middle East gone mad, and Israel and the USA seeking to bomb Iran, and Iran bombing back. Airspace shut down in the UAE. And let me say for the record, our Ministry of Foreign Affairs has been in deep contact on a regular basis the last 2 days with the citizens of Barbados who are in the UAE through our embassy there. And we've asked them also to have oversight for those who may be in Qatar or in Saudi Arabia, because we are conscious that the Hajj would have just taken place and some people may still be there in the Gulf states and may not yet have returned to Barbados. So that this is not normal circumstances. We have a minister out there, the Honourable Member for St. Michael North, and we have been working assiduously to see how we can get back in, because British Airways pulled their flights from since Sunday. But you would have a member for Christchurch South come in here and pretend that this is debating class in first form at Harrison College. I can't even say sixth form, because the extent to which he has reduced himself does not demand our respect for someone who has yet understood that context matters in debating. I want to say, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I give the assurance to Barbadians, that in this act, we have created fiscal space that will allow us to do more roads, that will allow us to support the hospital in a meaningful way, that will allow us to be able to clean up the country such that when we start to go into our 60th anniversary as a nation, from the 1st of December, that we do so as a clean nation, to allow us to be able to put in place any further requirements that the police may need and the other law enforcement agencies may need as we face these difficult times where people are trying to challenge the stability of this nation and the security of our people. And if you doubted that it took cash to care, go back to the Democratic Labour Party of 2013. They removed flexible payments, flexi-time payments for the police and others from 2013, it took this government to reintroduce them properly. They removed free education because they had not the money to pay for it, and meant that people who would otherwise benefit from free tertiary education would not be in a position to do so. And I can go on and on with the litany of woes. No buses bought for 10 years. No sanitation trucks bought for 10 years. This government has taken a whole host of delivery of trucks, and another set are due to come next month in July that will put us in a position to start to move towards 2 collections a week. How do you think that happens? By twiddling your nose? By getting up in here and making statements that don't have no relationship with the truth? It happens, Madam Deputy Speaker, because we roll up our sleeves and think outside the box and try to work out how best to stretch the dollar. And you as a mother, you as a teacher would know, Madam Deputy Speaker, that the first duty of a mother is to be able to see how I can make what a little I got stretch to be able to feed and take care and clothe everybody. And she would be the first to go to the credit union and be able to say, I owe X here, I pay now $500 here in a payment that due in 3 years' time. I pay now $200 in another payment that due in 5 years' time, because all of a sudden now I'm paying both principal and interest. Can I borrow a little something more to get through these times from you? And instead of me having to pay out $700 a month, I can be paying out $400 a month going forward, even if in total you may be paying out for a longer period of time. But it allows you to manage and to get through from day to day and month to month and year to year, and to provide in essential ways what you need to keep that family together and to move it from strength to strength. We have done no different as a government. I want to salute the team, and I want for the record to read the team into the Hansard. The Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central accompanied me. The Director of Finance and Economic Affairs, Mr. Ian Carrington. The Governor of the Central Bank. The Chairman of the Growth Council, Mr. Doddridge Miller. Senior Economic Advisor, Dr. Arnold McIntyre. The advisor on tax, and particularly the global minimum tax, and therefore our stability in terms of our fiscal flows, Mr. Pascal Santama. White Oak, through David Nagoski and Sebastian Espinosa. And of course, the teams that supported us at Capitol. The Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, Ms. Nancy Headley, Mrs. Nancy Headley, and the head of the debt unit, Ms. Antonina Innes. And from Central Bank, what's Michelle's last name? Michelle Yearwood, who has done an outstanding job for us in helping us to manage the joint economic group on a monthly basis. You know why I am so emotional today, Madam Deputy Speaker? Because all of those names I told you, if you think that that was the only duty they have in Barbados, you lie. Every member in this Parliament would know that they are always calling the Director of Finance and Economic Affairs and the PS Finance. Half of them would tell you that they have to be calling the Chairman of the Growth Council for those who work in the productive sectors, or the Senior Economic Advisor. All of these people are carrying multiple duties. But if we were in a developed country or a larger developing country, do you know that the only thing they would be doing is this and this alone with respect to the management of debt and the management of the fiscal affairs of the country? So we owe them a huge debt of gratitude. And as you heard from the Minister, this was not no joyride. To move from Boston to New York to London and Paris all in 4 days takes a toll on the human body. 2 days on planes, 2 days on trains. And I therefore want to thank everyone, and I want to say to this Honourable Chamber, the reason why this is important is that for 14 years this country did not have the confidence of the people of the world to be able to go back to the markets, either to borrow, for liability management, for financing purposes, for any purposes on the international capital markets. And not only did we do so in the middle of a war and conflict, but we have done so securing a better interest rate than countries who have a better credit rating than Barbados. I am proud to lead Barbados at this time. And I am happy to support this resolution. And I thank all honourable members for their support as we go forward. I'm obliged to you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Honourable Member for Christchurch. Question.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I promise not to be long. I see all the honourable members looking at me. I guess they thought that the debate would come to an end. But I just want to add a few words to this historic debate. The first thing, of course, Madam Deputy Speaker, is I have to get up and support this. This is truly, truly a historic day today, because not only did we do something in terms of taking a report for a resolution for parliamentary reform in the first part, but then today to come and bring a bill for a historic debt, a historic bond issue, which has seen a tremendous vote of confidence in the people of Barbados, can only be seen as a historic day today. It is unfortunate, though, Madam Deputy Speaker, that the Honourable Member for Christchurch South is not in his seat. And I say that for two reasons. The first thing is he picked an unfortunate concept of a fox losing its tail. But how many Barbadians have actually seen a fox? We are more accustomed to seeing monkeys. And we understand that the higher a monkey climbs, the greater he shows his tail. And you know, Madam Deputy Speaker, if you could sign up somebody other than yourself for financial literacy courses, we would have to sign up the member for Christchurch South today. Because he absolutely showed he does not understand financial matters at all, at all, at all. At no time in his discourse did he show any proficiency in understanding what this particular matter was doing. Madam Deputy Speaker, I want to be very, very clear. There is no member of the Democratic Labour Party that can lecture the people of the Barbados Labour Party about debt. None. None of them at all. And I say why. When they came to this honourable chamber, they came to print money. We have not come here to print money. We have come here to give fiscal space for the people of Barbados. And you could not say it better than the Honourable Prime Minister. What it is it gives you, even although it gives you a longer term to repay, the quantum that you prepay, the quantum that you amortize is less. So it means that your cash flow is better. Anybody who understands wealth, understands debt can be used to your advantage as long as you manage it well. And that's exactly what this is doing today. It is using debt to your advantage and using it in a way that you can manage it, and manage it in a way that you get more cash flow. And what does that cash flow mean? That means that you have better chances to spend that difference, that delta, between what you were having to pay in debt repayment before and what you're paying in debt repayment after, by extending the term, even although the interest rate increases. You know, it is something that people who understand numbers understand this. It is simple. It's simple. You can see it. It's like how you see the numbers, like how somebody sees day and night. It is obvious, because when you come to refinance, you refinance at a better term, and that's exactly what we're doing here today. But you know, I wanted to say to the Honourable Member, because he made it very clear, that we are borrowing money to repay a loan. But if you borrow money to repay a loan, you're not increasing. If your loan is X, and then you borrow X to pay back X, then there's no increase. It's not X plus Y. X remains the same. So that means then your member does not understand the concept, does not understand the extension of loan, does not understand amortization, does not understand how to finance, and instead only comes with lies and innuendo. The only thing, it was interesting because the honourable member says that the only thing growing in Barbados was crime, he said, and prices and cost of living. Drought and crime. Well, the only thing growing is the number of people leaving the Democratic Labour Party under his leadership. He forgot that. And let me say, Madam Deputy Speaker, I was at a concrete pour on the weekend. And I was able to have a discussion with the leaders of Ready Mix who were providing the concrete. And they made it pellucidly clear to me that the quantum of concrete that they are selling per month is 3 times what they did under the previous administration. 3 times what they did. And he said in some months under the previous administration, it was even more because there was even less concrete because there was no growth. I can put it another way. Economists look and tell you, you can measure the growth of a country by the number of cranes. There are cranes all across this country. There's cranes in Bay Street. There's cranes in the north by Nikki Beach. There's cranes by Royalton. There's cranes by Hyatt. There was a crane by Indigo. And those cranes are there because the country is growing. The country continues to grow and grow at a rapid pace. You know, the biggest problem that we are facing now, Madam Deputy Speaker, is not whether we can keep the pace, but can we get enough steel into the country to meet the needs that we have for the growth and construction that we're having? And those are the kinds of problems that we have. Good problem to have. Can we get enough sand? Can we get enough grit to meet the needs for the concrete so that we can continue to grow this country? You know, this obviously, Madam Deputy Speaker, is a sign of confidence. Confidence not only in our Prime Minister, and I want to commend the Prime Minister and her team, the Minister in the Ministry of Finance, and all those who were involved in being able to getting this as a benefit for the people of Barbados. And this is definitely a benefit. But this shows confidence. And let me say, Madam Deputy Speaker, people don't go and pick up 10, 20, 30, or $40 million just so. They do their research. They research the government. They research the leader. They research the performance of the government and of the economy. And the reason that they would have put that confidence in us, because they look and they see that we are on the correct trajectory. We are on the right path to make things better for Barbados. And making things better for Barbados is for all Barbadians. And we will continue every single day to improve Barbados and to make things better, because that is why we have come to office. We have not come to office to print money. We have not come to office to watch Barbados go under. We have not come to office to see downgrade after downgrade. We came to save the Barbados dollar. We came to save Barbados from the dastard Democratic Labour Party. And it's unfortunate that the Democratic Labour Party now finds itself in the position that it is in. It is unfortunate that the Democratic Labour Party took us down the rabbit hole. And we came to a time in this country where we needed bold and courageous leadership. We found that leader in the Honourable Prime Minister. We came to a time in Barbados where we had somebody who was prepared to make the tough decisions, who was prepared to save Barbados, who was prepared to say to the international world, we know what we have to do, and give us a chance to do it. And we have done it. And we have done it through the support of not only those that help us, not only those that advise us, but also those that have shown that confidence in us. And we will continue to do it every day because this is a labor of love. This is not a labor just to say who wants office or who wants power. That's not why we do it. We do it because it's a labor of love for the people of Barbados. And by extension, always forever, the Barbados Labour Party. Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm obliged.
Honourable member.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I want to commend the contribution from the Honourable Prime Minister and that of the Honourable Member for Christchurch West. I think we've had an extremely good debate on this particular resolution. There's really not much left for me to say, Madam Deputy Speaker, but just to give the country the assurance that the government we've shown up for duty, we will continue to do so, and therefore, with those very few words, Madam Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that this resolution do not pass.
Honourable members. The question is that this resolution do not pass. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This resolution now stands passed.
Madam Deputy Chair, Madam Deputy Speaker, with that we've come to the end of our business for today, and I therefore beg to move that Parliament do now be adjourned until Tuesday, 1st of July at 10 a.m.
The question is that this honourable chamber now stands suspended until, adjourned, excuse me, until Tuesday, the 1st of July, 2025 at 10 in the morning. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it. This honourable chamber now stands adjourned.